pass to Johnson. Johnson still going. Dummies again. Johnson into the one to Brown. Brown goes in to score. Oh, he's serving it down the touchline. Oh, this is unbelievable. They're going to win it. Oh, what scenes here, what scenes. LeBron James, a shot in history.
Buckle in and rev her up. Another episode of Surly on Ways, the last one from the studio before we take the show on the road and head across to Las Vegas. Absolutely firing on all cylinders for that one, of course. Next Tuesday night in New Zealand, 1995, the charter flight for Warriors fans departs our beautiful country en route to the entertainment capital of the world in Las Vegas. And your mate Surly, he's going to be in the mixer. Can't wait to get over to the States, Sin City, and see everything it has to offer. Of course, business trip for the boys. They're going over to take on Canberra and bank the 2 points. And it's a bit of business for me too, but also plenty of pleasure. We'll do my best to still crank out the pod from over there. We've got one take, recording some live shows over there too, so there'll still be plenty of content for Warriors fans. I'll also be doing some stuff for the TAB, so there'll be plenty on the plate. TAB, speaking of them, really appreciate their support. As always, if you're having a gamble this week, a Tyson gamble, please remember to do so responsibly, but do it through the TAB app or website. There's plenty of sport on. Joe Parker, that fight is going to be massive. Sunday morning, 10 a.m, paying good odds too, like he has been in his last 2 fights, coming in the underdog. So I reckon it could be worth a cheeky little flutter on him. Super Rugby, we had a massive perfect round multi last week on the pod. Tipped her out at $14.20, so stay tuned for my tips for round 2 as we look to run that back as well. I'm also going to rattle off the NRL futures because the TAB has that NRL multi-builder, the top 8 options there, back like they did last year. You can pick teams to make your top 8, top 4, grand final either, multi up your season predictions, and you can get some unreal odds back if you do happen to hit them. So I'll be running through my ladder and my predicted bets for that later on in the punting segment. She's all go today though, got a great guest on too, so I reckon we rip straight into that. A man who's been to Vegas before, he's heading over there again, an expert in all things rugby league, and a bloke you guys know as the Guru. Right, the preseason challenge is in full swing. We had the All-Stars game last weekend. We've got Vegas round 1 kicking off in just over a week now, and I know today's guest will be absolutely fizzing. Guru, mate, how are you?
I'm good, brother. Thank you for having me on, mate. It's been a while between drinks, but I'm looking forward to having a drink in Vegas with you too, just quietly.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the whole purpose of getting you on, because you're a Vegas veteran. You're 1 from 1 so far, and you managed to come back in one piece. So I was keen to get your advice. Obviously, the Warriors, it's our first year going over. We've got a chartered plane in New Zealand 1995. It's been renamed just to honour the year that the club first came into the NRL. Like, the energy levels are so high. Having a New Zealand team in the mixer, what can we expect as fans travelling over?
Mate, I'll tell you what, this year, like last year was really special. This year, adding in the Kiwi fans, adding in the English fans, mate, I'm so excited. I'm also terrified, if I'm completely honest with you, because last year was a big few days. This year is going to just be off its head. And I just, over the last 2 years, just watching what the Warriors have done and the impact they've had on rugby league, like the Up the Wars movement, and even just, I don't need to explain it to you, but just the impact they've had from a social media point of view as well on the NRL over the last 12 months. I cannot wait to see the Warriors wave hit Las Vegas. I think it's going to be so exciting over there, and I just think they're going to add a completely new energy over there. I cannot wait. And I think the timing has been, I wouldn't say perfect, because if I'm honest with you, I would have loved to have seen SJ run them out in Las Vegas, but
Yeah.
just where the Warriors are sitting at the moment. And you know what? The last 2 weeks, I think they've been one of the more impressive sides in the preseason. I think that, myself included, a lot of concerns about your halves. Lukey Metcalf, I call him, mate, because he's come of age over there. He's ready to go. And, everything's just looking pretty positive for you guys at the moment.
For sure. I want to touch on a few of the things you mentioned there, but before we jump into that, just the four game factor this time. And you mentioned the UK fans coming across. They love their footy and they
Mm.
love a beer. Teaming them up with the Aussie fans, the Kiwi fans, and the Americans that'll just happen to get swept up amongst it if they're having a good time in Vegas. It's a pretty dangerous recipe. How do you avoid first night fever? Like, what's your game plan? Because I'm going for 5 days. I think you're going for the same.
Yeah.
That's a long time in Vegas, and it's a lot of potential to be led astray.
Mate, for sure. And I was there for 5 or 6 days last year, and it is a long time in Las Vegas. And to be honest with you, mate, I was very busy throughout the whole thing. I was doing a lot of footy things every day, so that kept me on the straight and narrow. But I know that, like, Tom and Eddie from Hello Sport, like, the boys just had their eyes rolling out the front of their head for half the week. They were in all sorts. So, mate, it swallows you up very quickly over there in Vegas. So, I don't know if I have any tips, to be honest with you. We were sitting in a bar one night, me, Tom, and Eddie. It was about 3 a.m. It wasn't a huge bar, pretty small, only about 6 tables, and we're sitting there and we're just talking footy and everything. And then we look at the table next to us, and Catherine Zeta-Jones came and sat down next to us, and it was just like, what is going on here? It's just us three dribblers and her sitting in a bar. But that's what Las Vegas is about. There was no cameras around, no people. Everyone's just doing their own thing. It is such a unique spot in the world. And to be walking down, you're walking down the main strip in Las Vegas and you see a Cessnock Goannas jersey and you just go, what is happening here? Like, just incredible. And yeah, mate, honestly, it's a matter of survival for those 4 or 5 days. Make sure you get yourself to the game. And then I think the night after the game was an absolute cracker last night where everyone just went, okay, I've got a flight tomorrow afternoon. I've got to be out of my hotel at 11 a.m. I've got 13 hours to do whatever on earth I want. That last night was unreal.
Yeah, geez, you've got me excited already. I've had a few people ask like expectations because straight away you try compare it with like Magic Round, but obviously just from the outside looking in, I think it'll be quite different, right? Because Magic Round is literally rugby league heaven. Like I like to call it, and I've heard you guys call it before too, that the Taylor Swift concert for rugby league fans. Like, it's all go. This one will
Yeah.
be a bit different because I'm sure the Americans, like, they get around it. They're probably aware of it, but it's a completely different type of setting, isn't it? How would you compare it? Like, does it compare to anything else?
Mate, it's not like Magic Round. It's really not. And I sort of say that as a compliment to Magic Round because that is such a special thing that we've got there for rugby league fans. Like, when you're over in Vegas, you are like, when you're at Magic Round, like, you see a footy fan and it's like, oh, okay, like, there's 80,000 of us here. There's 100,000 of us here this weekend. When you see a footy fan in Vegas, it is, you both just have a mutual, you can just go and get a beer with them sort of vibe to it. And you're in this city that's just, everyone's partying. And there's a couple of other million people getting around that town that are not there for the rugby league as well, that are there for the other billion things going on. So it is very different to Magic Round, but it does have a similar kind of feel. What I'm really excited for this year, mate, which I think will feel a little bit like Magic Round, they have a tailgate out the front. Now, last year, people at home wouldn't have known this, but it was a horrendous day in Las Vegas. Like, I walked from my hotel to the stadium early in the morning, and mate, like, there was umbrellas being turned inside out, hats flying down the street. Like, it was windy and wet. It was a nightmare. So they actually cancelled the tailgate last year because the weather conditions were so bad. So this year, hopefully we get a good day because I think that could be an absolute cracker. Last year, walking around the stadium, I actually couldn't believe how many English fans were there last year. This year, with 2 English teams playing, I think there's going to be a lot more of them, and I can't stand them, but my God, they know how to party and have a drink. So I think that they're going to add a new atmosphere to it. And that tailgate, I can't wait to get stuck into that. It's going to be sensational.
Yeah, that's a content creator's dream right there. And I don't blame you for not being able to stand the English. I'm half English and I can't stand them myself. Warriors versus Raiders. That's obviously the main game for Warriors fans like myself. You mentioned before you've been impressed with the showings from the Warriors in the preseason challenge so far. And we've gone about the route of playing probably our best available team each week, all stars pending or injuries, things like that. How impressed have you been with the side? And I guess what's impressed you the most? Because I think coming in, people had low expectations for us, but I think some of those expectations are starting to change a little, albeit trial form. It's hard to know, but geez, against the Storm, a Storm Sea side, still, you have to put them away, right?
Yeah, 100%, mate. I completely agree. And I had a lot of concerns. I've been a Metcalf fan for years. Even when he was in the wilderness a couple of years ago, I remember when he first signed with you guys, I got all excited. And I remember Kempy sort of said to me, "Oh, does it worry you? He's been to 4 clubs and he just hasn't quite found it." And I sort of went, "Nah, like he's still got it. He just needs the right people to put his arm around him." The Warriors have done that. And mate, even how much I love him, I sat here 5 weeks ago and thought, geez, as a halfback, I just don't know about it. I know he'll be okay, but week to week over 27 weeks as a halfback, is he going to be able to really do what SJ was able to do with this side? And mate, the last 2 weeks, all the question marks I've had, I feel like Luke Metcalf has almost taken it personally to take everything I've said and prove me completely wrong in the last 2 weeks. And you're right, it is trials, and I get that 100%, but like as you said, you can only play what's in front of you. You can only do as much as you can do, and they've ticked every box they possibly could so far for me, the Warriors, and Metcalf in particular has ticked every box. I'm keen to see how Tanner Boyd fits into this whole situation over the next few weeks, because kicking game was my big concern, but Metcalf I think he's worked really hard at that this offseason. I think that's really evident. So yeah, mate, I've been really impressed with the Warriors. I love that Rogers seemingly had a preseason as an outside back instead of as a centre. I think he just looks ready to go this year. He looked tremendous the other night. Leo Tower, my God, that kid. It is scary how good he could be. It truly is scary how good he could be. I think that if he was at a Sydney club, I think he'd be a household name already. I just think over there he's probably been a little bit hidden. With his development so far, but he looks like he's ready to absolutely explode this season.
Yeah, big time. I've coined them the Penrose Pentagon, and it's 5 young lads that I think are coming through the Warriors, which are going to be the face of the club, and that's Demi, Lecker, Jacob Laban. I've thrown Healy in the mix now because I've been really impressed with him in preseason, and then Ali. And amongst that young core there, the 4 Kiwi lads, and then the one boy from Cronulla. It's starting to really take shape, isn't it? If the Warriors can hold them for the next 5 to 10 years. And these lads are passionate Warriors guys that hung around during this COVID break. They're that next gen that said, we want to put the club on our back. And I think as a Warriors fan, like this could be the most exciting period for the club we've had in a long time.
Yeah, for sure, mate. And I think as well it's coincided. Like, obviously, you've lost AFB, which is enormous, and I get that. But it's coincided with Mitch Barnett, 2 years ago going from, with all due respect to him, a lunatic with a bit of upside to him, to being a true leader, like an absolute true leader at the club, a Kangaroos front rower. And then you sign, in my opinion, one of the best leaders in the game you could possibly find in James Fisher-Harris. So if I had to choose, like I'd probably rather those young guys come in under James Fisher-Harris than AFB. AFB might be more damaging on a Sunday afternoon, but what Fish is going to do for those guys Monday to Friday, I just think you've absolutely nailed it from that perspective.
Can I paint you a picture, mate? Friday night, Mount Smart Stadium, it's pissing down, it's a blackout, the lights are off, you're an opposition team, you look across at the tunnel and you see Fisher-Harris and Barnett leading the team out. Is there a scarier sight in rugby league?
I genuinely don't think so, mate. And I think it's one of the scariest sights since, Mason O'Mealy back in '04 for Canterbury. Like it is a ferocious forward pack, like a front row combination like that. They don't come along very often. And I'd love to see the last time a team had a kangaroo front row forward and a Kiwi front row forward in the same time. And the other thing I love, mate, weirdly enough, it doesn't happen enough over the last 20 years. I think the Warriors should always have the Kiwis captain. I think it just fits so perfectly. I think the last one was Simon Mannering for a brief period, but I think that was more than 10 years ago. I think before that, you're talking Ruben Wiki, Stacey. I just think there's something special about that.
100%. 100%. And it's interesting listening to Fish talk about it too. He said for him, he had a calling to come home and it just feels right. And it's almost deeper than rugby league, which I guess as the Kiwis captain and being a Kiwi lad, it just brings that next level of leadership to the club, doesn't it? I had a hot take. And before the season started, I wanted to run it by you. My hot take was that if healthy for the year, Luke Metcalf would be our Simon Mannering medal winner, so our player of the year. and he'd finished the year as a top 5 halfback in the competition. After these 2 trial games, I look like a genius. Do you think it has legs, though?
Mate, I definitely think it has legs. I think I think just about your entire season hinges on Metcalf being fit. I think if Metcalf is fit, I think as well, mate, when it comes to like, awards like a Dally M and all that sort of stuff, like when you look at how points are rewarded, like Chance is a very good footballer, but he's not that huge highlights, Caleb Honga sort of guy. He's not going to steal a heap of points. Wade Egan, I don't think he'll steal a heap of points off him either. Whoever ends up at 5'8", if it is Tamare, like I'm expecting, also another guy that's probably not going to steal a heap of points. I think Metcalf's in a really good spot to do it. And I love Fish and Barnett, but they're not like AFB where they have the big highlights and they're going to score 9 tries and steal a heap of Dally M points. So I think Metcalf's a good little smoky if you guys do okay. We saw, a couple of years ago, like KP won the Dally M medal, obviously just beat Sean Johnson out, and Newcastle finished 8th. Like, you don't have to be at the top. You just have to be the main guy in your footy side to achieve things like that. And Metcalf, I don't think there's any questioning he's the main guy. Like, if you guys ran out and RTS was at fullback, straight away I'd go, okay, it probably just got a little bit harder. That's the guy that's going to probably rack up Dally M points. Yeah. Whereas Chance is more of just a battler, get through his work, put the team first, do whatever he needs to do, the little 1%ers. So I don't mind it, mate. I think Metcalf's a very good chance as far as your Simon Mannering medal goes. He's going to have to be front and center of everything. And I think that, and once again, mate, I'm just looking from the outside in, but I love the way that the Warriors over the last 12 or 14 or 24 months have really lent into, we're going to be a tough side, but on social media and everything, we're going to lean into the personalities. We've got that sort of cool factor that the Warriors have. Yeah. And mate, Metcalf is the guy I think of every single time. I just think he fits everything about the Warriors right now. And I hadn't thought about your player of the year until right now, but I think it's a really good shout, mate.
Fingers crossed it comes through so that I can claim it for sure. I wanted to talk about the Raiders' round 1 opponents, because I thought for the first 20 minutes of that trial on the weekend, when they had close to their top side, they've still got guys like Joseph Tapine and that to come in, but I thought they looked really sharp, and my group chat was firing up a little with Warriors fans being like, man, they look organised. Fogarty's pulling the strings. KO Weeks looks deadly. What did you make of the Raiders in, I guess, that first 20 minutes, which is that period you can judge them on for round 1?
Mate, I thought that game, 40-10, that genuinely might have been the most misleading score I've ever seen in a game of rugby league. I thought the Raiders were, in the first 20 minutes, by far and away the better side. And if I was Ricky Stewart, I would have pulled them off all at the exact same time. They ticked every box they needed to in that first 20 minutes. I think Jamal Fogarty's got one of the most underrated kicking games in rugby league. And I think heading over there to Las Vegas, I think like the fields are slightly smaller. I think that, people at home probably saw it on TV and everything last year, and it's all good and well. But mate, when you're in that stadium, you actually get to see how much smaller the fields are. It's going to matter 100%. And I think Fogarty, his kicking game is going to be incredibly important. I love Ethan Strange as a ball running 5'8". As you said, KL Weeks really lit it up. And, mate, like that's without Joe Tarpanay and Corey Horsburgh, who I think is going to have an enormous season. So I do look at the Raiders and they run out with essentially the same team as last year. Like they'll lose Jordan Rapana, who, you lose a winger. Okay, like it doesn't change your structure all that much. Elliot Whitehead will be a big loss. I'm hoping that Zach Hosking will be there for him, whereas I look at you guys and you have got, obviously, without Shawnee, you have got a couple of changes in your spine. Without AFB, that'll change your structure as well. So I hate to say it to you, mate, I reckon the Raiders are a serious shot at an upset in Vegas. I think it'll really suit Ricky on that smaller field just to kick to the right spots and just try and get everything right over there. And the Raiders, they don't play exciting footy. They play boring footy, but they get a job done.
Yeah, they do. And by my calculations for the ladder, I think starting the season off with a win is going to be incredibly important, because the way I see it, there's going to be a real logjam between potentially finishing as high as 6th and finishing as low as 14th, 15th. I think it's going to be a really tight competition. Is that how you see it as well? Do you think there's going to be not a lot separating the teams in the comp this year? So all of a sudden, winning in round one becomes a lot more important than perhaps it has in the past, where teams kind of build their season.
Mate, I completely agree. I think this, and I say it every year, but I just feel like the NRL just gets better every season. I think teams get closer. You know, we did a bloke preview the other day where we had to pick our ladder, and mate, to be honest with you, picking the top 8, it wasn't that difficult for me. Picking where teams are going to finish in the bottom 9 was just mission impossible. Trying to work out who's going to finish in the bottom 4, mate, it's all just going to come down to injuries. That's all it's going to come down to for me. Realistically, there's no outlier team at the bottom. Like when you look at a team like the West Tigers that have won 3 wooden spoons in a row, their halfback has won 4 comps in a row. Their hooker's won a couple of comps in the last few years. They got Terrell May arriving. If they're the worst team in the NRL, as people want to say, they're the best worst team I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, the floor of the NRL is just so high at the moment that it makes it so tough. And I agree with what you said, mate. Round one, if you come up with a loss, it can get tough. I think the thing with these sides is that if you come up with a loss on the other side of the world and you have to come all the way back, and I mean, I always say it on my podcast, I feel really sorry for you guys. I think people don't appreciate how much travel you guys have to do week to week. And I came over there I came over to New Zealand during the year to watch my brother play SG ball over there. And mate, it's a 3-hour flight, but by the time you go through international, you do all that. And I got home and I was exhausted. And I think people really underappreciate how much training time and how much downtime, probably more importantly, your players lose every single week. Chuck in Vegas, it's tough. Even like with you guys going to Vegas, I cannot believe they didn't just give you trials in New Zealand 2 weeks ago. I can't believe you had to go to Shark Park to play a trial. That just blew my mind. I think it's a huge factor, mate. If you lose over there round one, you have to wait a long time to play your next game. There's a lot of travel involved in that. And I think it's going to be incredibly important, mate. Who do you guys play in round 2? Where are you? You're at home, thankfully. Okay, that helps a little bit.
Yeah, we've got Manly back at home. So that's a big game though, because I think we played the Chook straight after that too.
Yes.
If you don't pick up, at least one out of those 3.
Yeah, it could get tough all of a sudden. And then pressure will start to build very quickly, as we know.
Big time, big time. You mentioned the Sharks there in passing. I wanted to bring up this Tommy Hazleton chat. Obviously, it's just a rumour, but they were saying he's been around the club on the weekend, toured the facilities. It hasn't been confirmed by the Warriors, but I wanted to ask your opinion on it. Do you think it's got legs? Do you think Tommy Hazleton would be a good get for the Warriors? For some reason, and I saw Tom and Eddie's clip about it, whenever I think of him, I think he's 30 and a battler. But he's actually not. He's 25, 26. He's an unreal footballer and great nick, scores tries for fun. Like, he's actually a really good player, but he's got this cult status about him that you just assume that he's the opposite. What do you reckon about Hazleton potentially joining the Warriors? Do you think he'd be a good fit for us?
Mate, I think Hazleton would be a good fit for 17 NRL clubs. I think he's a really good player. I think that in the modern game, having different body shapes in your forward pack is very important. I think that's something that you guys have lent into over the last few years. And I just think Hazleton, he's such a unique, he's just all limbs, but they just can't seem to handle him. And especially with a guy like Wade Egan at 9 for you guys, I think it could be a dynamic little combo. And it is probably one concern I have for you guys, and it's with a lot of teams that your starting front rowers are so good, and there is a little bit of a drop off when it comes back to the bench, which most teams have that sort of problem as well. But I just think Hazleton, he could just be the perfect balance guy to be able to come off the bench for you guys. And mate, I look at the Sharks. I've been saying it for 2 years. Like, how do they keep re-signing all these guys? They've been a top 4 team for 3 years now. None of them are playing Origin, which I think just helps them just to keep them under the cap slightly, but I sort of thought Mulatalo would probably be the one that would be squeezed out. They managed to re-sign him. They've re-signed Cam McInnes, Teague Wilton, Britt Nicola. Something has to give at some point. They can't keep finishing top 4 and keeping all these guys continuously. Like, something's got to give, and I would assume Hazleton would have to be the one that gets squeezed then. And, mate, I just – if he's travelling over to New Zealand to tour facilities, it's not like he's driving down the road. Like, that's a day's travel to go over there and look. So he must be fair income about it.
Big time. And for me, it's exciting as well, the thought of potentially playing Barnett in the second row and having Hazleton out there and just going big on a
Yep.
4-pack. And then you got young guys like Dimitrik, Vaimoga coming through as well. Could be a pretty deadly pack and give us some great depth. That's for sure. So it'll be interesting to see how it progresses over the next couple of days. Finally, bro, I wanted to put you on the spot here because I know you don't have a team, but you've been a part of Warriors history. You came across and delivered us the Harold Matts Trophy. It was a special day for the club. I feel like your heart belongs at Mount Smart. I'm not asking you to commit for the whole year. I heard the other day on the Bloke Pod, you said you're getting around the Dragons this year for a betting perspective, but surely you're on the bandwagon for Vegas. Warriors fan. Make it happen.
Mate, I love the Warriors. I've always loved the Warriors. From when I was a kid, that was that Stacey Jones, Ali Lawatiti sort of period where they were just must-watch footy. They might not win every week, but they were must-watch footy every single week. So entertaining. They've gone through their ups and downs over the last few years, but mate, as I get older and the more I'm into my job, the more I appreciate clubs like the Warriors who are putting, in my opinion, a lot more effort into their community, their social media than a lot of other teams. And I consider Jackson to be a good mate of mine that I've always stayed in contact with. And just watching their journey and what they're doing over there, I think the Warriors are leading the way in a number of aspects. And I can't wait to see what they do with this Las Vegas opportunity. And mate, I'd be lying if I said I'm not sort of quietly cheering on the Warriors most weeks because I think the last 2 years has been a really good example, mate. Rugby league is better when the Warriors are going better. I think they are one of those sides, and I think that in the comp at the moment, the way that we're looking at expansion and everything, I think it's an absolute no-brainer to try and have another New Zealand side. I really do, and especially when, and I don't want all of your listeners to hunt me down with pitchforks, but especially when I don't think rugby union is as good a spot as it has been in previous years. Once again, I'm not as educated on it, but I don't think it's in as good spot as it has been. I think league in New Zealand is in a better spot than it probably ever has been. I think it's just time to lean in. I'm all for getting a Perth side in. I think that'd be really good. But then I want a Kiwi side in there. I want a second New Zealand side. I want that to be like when you look at the Warriors now, like your biggest rivalry in the NRL, realistically, like sure you've got the teams you played in your grand finals, but I don't look around the league and go, okay, like this is like their South Sydney, their Roosters sort of game. I think it would be amazing. And it's a game that, from a content perspective, I'd love to fly over for every year to see the Warriors play the new New Zealand franchise. I just think there's so much potential there. That could be like a mini origin during the season.
100%. And I think we've seen it. I don't know if people even watch the A-League over in Australia, but we've got an Auckland team now and a Wellington team now. And this is the first year that that's been in play. And it's been massive. But like you said, rugby here is struggling. And it's off the back of the Warriors dominating social media. And it's only going to get bigger too, because we've got rugby schools here that don't allow their players to play league. And if there's a change in that in the next 2 to 3 years, then the talent that comes out of New Zealand is going to be absolutely unreal.
Just on that note that you just said there, like personally, you mentioned before those 5 young fellas that are coming through the system. And I know Sam Healy's obviously come over from the Shy, but the other 4 boys, mate, 10 years ago, I'm not convinced they'd be playing for the Warriors. I'm really not. I think that they would be within a union system. They'd be lined up to be All Blacks of the future and whatnot. Whereas now, like, and from my brief experiences of coming over there last year and just talking to people around the streets and whatnot, it's cool to be part of the Warriors. It's cool to be part of the league there. And I think that the dynamic has just shifted completely in the last 10 years. And I think in the last 5 years. And I think the NRL just need to grab it with 2 hands and lean in massively.
100% agree. We're only scratching the surface here, so it's exciting times for sure. Exciting times too for us. We'll both be in Vegas. I think you're jumping on the Warriors pod. We're doing a bit of a pre-game preview over there a couple days in advance, so looking forward to catching up in person, having a beer. Then we don't have to deal with these internet issues and whatnot, but really appreciate your time, mate. Safe travels to Sin City, the entertainment capital, and I'll see you in a couple days' time for 50-odd cold ones.
Mate, I can't wait to see you. And whilst I just got you, mate, congratulations on everything you've done over the last few years. It's been unreal to watch. We've always sort of stayed in contact to some extent. It's good to see good people doing well in this space, and you've stuck at it for years. And that's the other thing I love about the Warriors, that they're taking people like you on board and utilising your skill set, which is fantastic, mate. So congratulations on all you've done. I can't wait to have a few brewskis over there with you, mate.
Super Rugby, Super Bang Bang, she's back on screens, and what a round one it was too. 64 points scored on average per game. A lot of the games were nail-biters too. No 13-plus wins. Blues versus Chiefs, 11 points, your biggest winning margin. I wouldn't have picked that at the start of the round. 5-point winning margin on average throughout the games. The third smallest for a Super Rugby round one in history. I think the lowest from that was late 90s, early 2000s too. So it ticked every box for me. We saw teams throwing the ball around on attack, entertaining footy to watch. Those 30-second shot clocks made it faster, bit more time with ball and play, which has always been the biggest knock on rugby. And I think all teams came with intentions to throw the footy around, have some fun, score some points, and make it an entertaining product. On the other side of the ball, I thought most teams were pretty strong defensively too. Yes, there were points scored, but it wasn't at the hands of some dog shit defense. Overall, I just think teams have been in the lab over the off-season. Attacking coaches have been cooking up new ways to expose and skin teams, and I reckon everyone looked pretty bloody good. My biggest takeaways from week one, Chiefs versus Blues, that for me was the highest quality game of the weekend. I thought the physicality in this one was huge. The Chiefs clearly came to Eden Park with a chip on a shoulder and a point to prove. I think they'd lost their last 5 games there. And then you add to that the way they lost the final last year. They got bullied. They got pumped. It was embarrassing. And speaking to Naitoa in the off-season and, of course, on the pod, he mentioned that that was a real stone under their towel during the off-season. They wanted to come out in this game and prove a point, and they certainly did that. I thought they dominated the Blues pack and dominated their backline too. But that is 2 quality signs that'll 100% meet again. And no doubt Sternvern, he would have ran through that footage with a fine-tooth comb, and the Blues will be prepared for when they play them again next time. No Hoskins, of course, so that was a massive loss for them too. One of their biggest ball carriers and bruising ball runners. I thought the Crusaders looked good. Will Jordan, what a freak. His work rate, anytime he's around the ball, something just happens, and I love seeing him inject himself into phase play attack too. That pod shape they ran, lead ball runner, inside cleaner, just bounces out late. Will the thrill, flying through from that driver position, then feeds Preston to score a try underneath the sticks. That's some really nice attack shape there, and good to see him just being in and around the ball, always presenting a threat. When you're an opposition defense and you see Will Jordan sniffing around, you can't help but be on high alert. Creates opportunities for others too. I thought he was unreal. James O'Connor, silky off the bench. I scoffed at this signing. I didn't think it was a good play from the Chiefs at all, but bringing on a veteran playmaker like that for the last 20 to 30 odd minutes to close down the game, hit some silky passes to put people in gaps. I thought he was really good. And, of course, Cole Preston, who I'll touch more on shortly. The Canes, they were better than I thought in this game. I thought they looked strong, put up a heck of a fight to their forward pack, despite missing guys like Lomax, Asafo Amua. They were really good. Backline looked deadly too. Kini Naholo, he is a weapon on the wing. The Landers, thought they should have put that game away against the Tars. It was a great game to watch, and they'll probably be kicking themselves to not come away with the points in that one. Same for Moana, up by 13 points with 4 minutes to go, and I actually had a multi riding on this one. I did the old perfect round bet, as you know, but then I also did a bit more of a Leary option with the Chiefs to win and Moana to win as the results. Unfortunately, I screenshot the bet slip with 5 minutes to go, fired it in the group chat, switched the game back over to the All-Stars League game and continued to watch that. I thought it was a winner, went the early crow, shit did my phone light up, and straight away I didn't even need to look at the score. I knew something had gone wrong. The lads were paying me out. Heartbreaking scenes for Moana, not the best way to start the season. At the same time though, while I do expect this Force to be the bottom team in the competition this year, To go over to Perth and just lose on the hooter like that, you can still take something positive out of that one. They're going to need to bar up this weekend, though, up against the Reds over in Brisbane. My last takeaway, the Aussie sides, they're good. For the first time since 2018, all Aussie teams won in the same round. Of course, the Reds, they had the bye, so just the 3 from 3 wins. But I thought they looked pretty sharp. Brumbies, they're always good despite missing a few big players. Rob Valentini not lacing up for them, but they went over to Fiji and did what almost proved to be impossible last year and pick up the points. The Tars with Joseph Suali'i in the mixer, guys like Angus Bell, Taniela Tupou, and their star replacement prop, which again, I'll touch on him shortly. They did bloody well. And then the Force, just never say never. Ben Donaldson with some masterclass at the end to get them the win. The Aussie teams are here to play this year, just further cementing that opinion. I think this comp is going to be incredibly tight. She's going to be a massive race to try and get into those top 6 spots to book yourself a ticket to finals footy. Standout individuals for me for this round, D-Mac. Thought he put on a clinic, scored 20 of the Chiefs' points. Love how he started at fullback and then moved into 10 later in the game once it started to open up. He's probably the best player in Super Rugby at the moment. His ability to crack the game open is unreal, and he's dominated this competition for the last few years, which is why I say that statement. It was a heck of a first knock as my Super Rugby captain as well. Incredibly grateful for that. I saw a few people triple captained him first up against the Blues. That is ballsy stuff. Shout out to Maso. I think that's how you pronounce it. He's leading my Super Rugby Fantasy League off the back of a D-Mac triple captain. Wild scenes. I'm coming fourth myself, so pretty happy with that. Jeez, old Maso shot out the gates early doors. Leroy Carter, he deserves a shout out too. Old Boomfa, gun on debut on the wing. Jeez, the Chiefs are stacked for outside back talent. Cole Preston, mentioned him before. Hat-trick hero on debut, came in late for Hotham and just carved up. This kid's good, and of course spoke to Jimmy Marshall about him last week. 4-13 Bronco, fit as a fiddle, had a great season for the Lions in the NPC last year, and Welly, they're kicking themselves in the dick now for not signing him up over the break. He got given a start here due to Noah rolling the ankle late in the piece, and he certainly made the most of it. Full-time roofer. Don't think he's going to need to go back on the tools anytime soon. If his future's not in Super Rugby, which I think it is, then surely an overseas club will pay big bucks for him. But if you were one of the 0.1% that had him in fantasy, then that is a pure coaching masterclass from you. Given he wasn't even meant to start, that 0.1%, probably his mum, dad, his best mates, and all of his lads. But man, did he reward you with 3 of the best meaties. I just love his support play, again showing off his fitness. He's just always in and around the ball, looks like a competitor. He's a bloody quality halfback. Will Jordan, Sevu Reece, they both look deadly as well. Kyron Time Moifalau, want to give him a shout. The winger for Moana bagged a double on the sting for them. This kid's an athlete. Debuted for them last year, had a strong NPC season for Tasman as well. He just looks to be the goods, and he was a pleasure to watch. He reminds me a bit of a rugby league winger. Got a great finish on him. Loves to get aerial, and I reckon he's got a massive future. Caleb Tangito, another one with a big future. Of course, moved to the Landers in the off-season. Was one of my players to watch this year. 2 tries on debut for them. Explosive, quick, powerful winger who has a great running game. Good to see him get a chance just to show how good he can be on the Super Rugby stage. I'm keen to see how he goes this week as well, up against his former side in the Blues. That'll be a chip-on-shoulder performance, so I'm expecting big things there. Tim Tavatavanawai playing 12. I said last year I thought he could be an all-black bolter for the future. I reckon that time could come this year. Of course, he's a winger by trade. Played some midfield for Tasman out of necessity last year once they picked up a few injuries and looked really good there. Jamie Joseph, he's rolled the dice and chucked him at 12, and it's great to see him doing that at Super Rugby level. He's such an all-rounded player. Strong over the ball at ruck time. Basically another loose forward. He's a destructive ball runner, a better distributor than I gave him credit for as well. And I tell you what, he's got a boot on him too. I think he kicked that 50-22 just straight off a scrum, set piece. Looked like he was just going to run it straight, truck nut like so many teams do. And as an opposition first 5, you'd be absolutely pissing your pants. But instead, just drops it softly, delicately on the right boot. 50-22, massive play. Landers get the ball back. That right there is really showing off your skill set. There's more than meets the eye to Big Jim. co-captain, so he's got that leadership potential around him as well. I think now with this move to the midfield, he's showing his utility value as well. He's not just a winger. He can play in the midfield, and All Black coaches look for that. When it comes down to those last outside back spots, if you can offer more than just covering one position, it's a massive box tick. So that, for me, if he can keep this up, makes him a 2025 All Blacks bolter candidate for sure. Shout out to the Warriors prop, Siosifa Amone, 2 late meaties to steal the win for them. Suali, he looked good as well, mentioned him before, but the impact of this bloke, they've got the Tongan Thor and Taniela Tupou who they grabbed from the Reds, and now they've got the Samoan sledgehammer and Siosifa Amone. He looks bloody hard to put down, especially close to the line, built like a bowling ball too. They said he's 6 foot on the nose, so he's not overly tall, but he's 125 kilos. Probably just pure muscle and raw power. This kid has a massive future on him. I think he was the Wallabies under-20s prop a couple years ago. So yeah, no doubt. They've got big ambitions for him to wear the green and gold again in the years to come. Moving on to this week, and I've actually delayed recording the Super Rugby segment until after 4 p.m. so that we can have the team's name just to add some extra value to you for listening to this pod. So let's get straight into it. 4:15 at time of recording, and the teams have now dropped. First game, Chiefs vs Crusaders, of course, Friday night down at FMG Stadium in the mighty Waikato, and not many Rob Penny. Just one change to the starting side. Injury force, of course. Noah Hotham drops out, replaced by Kyle Preston, the hat-trick hero. So you could say that that's not really even a change, because that's how they started last week. The only change on the bench, Mitchell Drummond comes in to fill Preston's spot. So it's pretty run-of-the-mill stuff there from Rob for the Chiefs. Clayton McMillan, he's made 7 changes to the starting side that bet the Blues. Up front, Aiden Ross, he replaces Ollie Norris. At loosehead prop, Bradley Slater gets a nod at hooker, ahead of Brody McAllister, who moves to the bench. Tupovai slots in the second row in place of Naitoa Arkoi, who I thought had a bloody good game. But hey, it's Tupovai, so there's not too much you can do there. Jerome Brown, the former Brumbies flanker, he's set to make his Chiefs debut on the open side. And then on the backs, Ramika Poihipi and Anton Leonard-Brown form a new midfield combo with Quintu Paia set to play his 50th match off the bench. Shit, that's a little harsh. Milestone game played well last week. Moved to the Rimu. Tough bickies there. Moni Narawa slots in on the right wing. Leroy Carter moves to the left. Etini Nanai Satoro drops out of the side completely. Some new faces on the bench. Manaki Selby Rickett and Gideon Rampling. Jeez, changes galore there for the Chiefs. This, of course, is the first time I'm seeing these sides as I'm reading them out here. So some big moves there. Interesting to see they didn't just stick to what worked last week, roll out that same side and that bench for some late impact. Instead, they're going back to stacking the starting lineup. Bench still looks pretty strong, though. You got Samapeni Finau, Cortez Ratama, Quintu Paia on there too. So plenty of punch to inject in late. But man, some tough calls there, that is for sure. The Chiefs, though, again, just a byproduct of being stacked. I like them at home in this game. I think they will win this one. And while I do expect it to be reasonably close, I don't think the Chiefs will be pushed right down to the wire. These games, though, the Crusaders, they always show up, and they've often been the Chiefs' Achilles heel. I just reckon at home, after what I saw from them last week, D-Mac at the helm. First off in the 15 jersey, Josh Jacob again getting a run in the 10, but expect them to switch late. Jacob probably come off, and D-Mac will rip and tear. That's for sure. Reds up against Moana Pacifica. Teams aren't up yet, so that's a bit of a bolter there. Let me jump on the Instagram app and see if the Tribe app is just lagging a little. By the way, if you don't have the Tribe app and you're a sporting fan, download it immediately. Not an ad, but shit does it make keeping up with results and the latest happenings in the sporting world bloody easy. Moana, they've got their team list up on their Instagram, unchanged starting side and one potential debut off the pine in Lossi Filippo. So a pretty strong Moana team with one game under the belt, taking on a Red side that of course had the bye last week. They've had to travel from the UK. There could be a little bit of fatigue, but it is a bloody strong team that they have named too. Of course, your usuals, Tate McDermott, he's in the mixer, Tommy Liner in at 10, Fraser McWright, your vice-captain, one of the best sevens going around in the world, Harry Wilson, Seru Uru. They round out a pretty deadly loose forward trio, Hunter Paisame in the midfield with Josh Fluke, Tim Ryan, the flyer on the sting. He'll be an anytime try scorer bet, that's for sure, alongside Filippo Dangunu, who I think came across from the Melbourne Rebels. If it wasn't last year, then it was the year before. So a strong Reds team. They would be a good game to have as a punt on for your anytime try scorers, so I will certainly be doing that on my Friday night for my same game multis. For the Canes, they kick us off on our Super Saturday triple header. This game comes from Napier too, so no doubt the Hawke's Bay fans will be getting out in big numbers. The Birdcage will be packing out their section of the stadium for sure. The Canes though, the Swirls, just one change to the starting side that lost to the Cranberry Cruisers in a tight one last week. Hugo Plummer, no relation to Harry, he starts at lock for Isaiah Walker-Leawere, who drops out of the 23. Will Tucker takes Plummer's place on the bench, and he's in line for a potential debut, so no big changes there for the lads from the capital. For the Drua, 13 changes to their starting side. That is massive scenes. Glenn Jackson chucking out the textbook, playing some fuck it footy and saying, come on lads, we're going to make wholesale changes here and try pick up a dub on the road. I like the Canes at home here to be too strong. We all know the draw at home, completely different beast to one that has to board the plane and travel. So get up the Swirls. Landers versus Blues, looking forward to this game. This one should be a barnstormer. 7:05 kickoff from the old Sistema lunchbox, Forsyth Stadium. You got the Blues, just two changes for them for this one. One in the pack, one in the back line, and it's a massive change in the back. The big fella, the player of the year for Super Rugby last year, Hoskins Satutu. He is back in the number 8 jersey. Is he England bound after this? We still don't know, but shit will Stern Vern and the Blues lads be happy to have him in the mix. Cam Saw-Foa switches the blindside flanker in place of Anton Segner. Then in the back line, Finlay Christie gets the start with Funaki dropping to the bench, and James Mullen, potential debut off the Rimu as well if he gets called into the action. For the Landers, 4 changes for them. Viveni Lasaka, he comes into the open side. For Lau Fakatava gets the start in the 9 jersey with Robinson in the 10. Still Big Jim in the 12 jersey. Midfield pairing remains unchanged. Sammy Gilbert, he moves to the right wing. Finn Hurley filling out the back 3 at fullback, and Caleb Tangito on the left wing. So a couple little tweaks there in the back line for the lads from the dirty south. I do think the Blues get this one in a pretty tight clash. Hopefully the students get out, pack out the zoo. I think this could be an entertaining game. You can't blame weather conditions, so I'm expecting plenty of points, and I can't wait to see Big Hoss back lacing up the boots with a point to prove this Blues pack. They will want to be claiming some scalps. And this Highlanders forward pack, if there's one thing we know about them, it's that they won't roll over. They will be up for the physical battle for sure. Last game, Brumbies versus Force. Won't tuck into those lineups, but expecting the Brums to be too strong at home in Canberra. Shit all over the place, but they're a quality Super Rugby side, and I think they will 13 plus the Force, who might have picked up one of only a few wins that they'll rack up this season by my calculations this year. So another hissing round of Super Rugby, some big matchups, none bigger you could say than your Friday night Chiefs vs Crusaders game. Landers Blues, that'll be bums on seats stuff for me. So enjoy your Super Rugby action. Hopefully we can tip the perfect round again. That would be massive scenes. Weekly wrap and the main sporting event on my lips this weekend, and I'm surprised it hasn't been spoken about more. I guess because it's a bit out of sight, out of mind over in Saudi Arabia, of course. Joseph Parker fighting 10 a.m. this Sunday. She's scheduled to get underway, taking on Dan Dubois, the big French lad who's looking to defend his IBF heavyweight title. Parker coming in on a hot streak. He's beaten Zhang, he's beating Wilder in his last 2 fights, went into both of those as underdogs. And I reckon we see a similar performance and outcome here. He's the more experienced fighter. Dubois, he has crazy knockout power, which I'll touch on more in the punting segment. But at the same time, Parker's got a bloody good chin. And I reckon with his technical fighting ability, his smarts, the experience factor, he's been in a fair few more big fights and he's gone the distance, gone the rounds in some big scraps too. I reckon he's just going to be able to pick him apart, win the majority of the rounds, and then get his hand raised at the end. So get up, Joe, looking to be a double belt holder and book a ticket to fight Usyk, who of course has said he's going to fight 2 more times in the next 18 months before he hangs up the gloves, and he wants the winner of this one. Shit, I'd love for Parker to get another crack at unifying all the belts. That'll be one of the biggest moments in New Zealand sport, so go well there, lad. AFC versus the Phoenix this weekend, derby game, 5 p.m. kickoff at the Fortress. Doesn't get any better. AFC looking to pull off the clean sweep, of course. Get your brooms out. That would be 3-0 up against our NZ rivals. It'll be a down trailing Joe Ofahengawe, as it's now known as. And I'd love to see this happen. The lads are coming in confident off the back of that 2-0 road win against Western United last weekend, boosted as well by the news that our skipper Hiroki Sakai has extended his contract through to next year. A great video on the announcement of that too. I was a little worried. No doubt there were big money offers being thrown at him, and I'll be interested to know how much the AFC pay a player like him, a marquee player and a skipper. It must be a decent amount of coin relative to what goes around in the A-League. But I was worried he was going to head offshore to a bigger competition. Perhaps it's a testament to how much fun he's having here. Part of a new franchise, top of the league, going great guns. Also the support we've got from the fans. New Zealand, not a bad place to live. We've had a hissing summer, so that certainly helps. And also maybe the A-League is just picking up in popularity too, so he thinks it's good for his personal brand to be lacing up at the Black Knights. But get up the boys, no doubt the Port, that'll well and truly be humming. Saturday Arvo, 5 p.m, the perfect time. Coupley brews before you head in, a few Darren Frothiers. It's a recipe for a huge turnout. I've got a 40th birthday at full time that day, so unfortunately won't be there this time in the Port getting amongst it, but you best believe it'll be bums on seats at the bar. I'll still be ripping out the chants. We are top of the league. The Phoenix get battered everywhere they go. And hopefully that's the case in this game too. 2-1, I'm thinking. Pretty similar scoreline. I think, in fact, that was the scoreline last time we played them. So hopefully she's another rinse and repeat there. Shout out to the Black Caps as well. Mentioned last week, it's a bit of that summer sporting solstice now, where you got your summer sports, back into them, your winter sports kicking into action, which means she's all go. Well done to the lads. Bet Pakistan in the final of that ODI Tri-Series last week. We're playing in the ICC Champions Trophy now. In fact, game 1 for us is tonight, Wednesday night, at time of recording for me. Last night for you, Roosters. Pakistan again, so get up the mighty Caps. I think we've got India and Bangladesh in our pool. Would love to see us go well in this comp. We're coming in bloody hot form too after a sweep in that Tri-Series. So it would be great to add another bit of silverware to our trophy cabinet. All of a sudden, all that chat around the Caps, perhaps needing a new coach, certainly seems to have died down. And then finally, NBA All-Stars weekend. Nothing crazy to report here. Mac McClung, the G League champ, he won the dunk contest again. Tyler Hero won the three-point contest. And the OGs won the All-Star game with LeBron sitting out late. Shit, does that make me nervous. Ankle and foot injury. But I do reckon he's just resting up, prioritising the back little quarter of the season here for the Lake Show. Of course, they got Luka. They're now a genuine contender, sitting in 4th in the West, I think, at the moment. So hopefully he's just resting the rig, so he's good to go, especially for that game against the Knicks on March the 6th at Crypto, which, of course, your boy will be attending. Fucking fizzing for that. Do have to say, though, wasn't a huge fan of this new All-Star game format for me. The only option here moving forward is to do one or two things. The first one is make it Team USA up against Team World. Put bragging rights on the line. The Americans, they're so proud at being the best basketball nation in the world and producing the best talent. Well, Team World now, they would be stacked. You got the likes of your Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, your Joker, Giannis, Luka, Victor Wembanyama. You can rattle off 10 to 12 names that are all genuine superstars and some of the biggest names in the game. Chuck them up against Team USA, bragging rights and pride on the line, and let's see them go at it. You could put a fuck ton of prize money behind it too. I genuinely reckon this is the only way you're going to get these superstar players to lace up every year and actually give a shit and play hard throughout this game. Otherwise, it just becomes an exhibition and not a game worth watching. The second option for me, and this is the option I hope they don't take, but it's almost borderline getting to it now. Name your all-stars like they did last year. Best players in the league. They get the accolades of being named. They get to activate their bonuses in their contract and whatnot. Name them, but they don't actually play a game. They just take a week off like the rest of the league to rest and recover, because clearly these guys now are prioritising that last quarter for their franchises, and fair enough too. Those are the teams that pay the bills. They still want to be acknowledged as an all-star though, so this ticks both of those boxes. It's just the fans that miss out. At the same time, that was literally a waste of time on the Monday Arvo watching that game. Really was a bit of horse shit. So the All-Star breaker ends today. Glad it's over. Lakers versus Charlotte. The old Dalton Connect Cup gets us back going. We're on the home stretch now, pre-finals. I think every team has about 28 games remaining. This is where it really starts to ramp up and teams go hard to fight for seeds, try to make their way into the play-in too. So she should be exciting. Couple months at the rear end of the old NBA season. Punting Chat time now. Green ticks on bet slips. That's exactly what we delivered last week. A clean sweep in the Super Rugby. You beauty. Almost hit on the Ivan Leary as well with Moana. Just wasn't to be, but still $14, $20 odds. We will take that, and hopefully we can look to go again. Massive if we go back to back, almost biblical stuff, and I'll be crowning myself as the king of Super Rugby punting. But hey, don't want to get ahead of myself either, because it's a slightly difficult round depending how you want to play this one. There's a couple margins which I'm not quite sure on, so maybe we just play a little safer than I first calculated. First game though, Chiefs versus Cruisers. Chiefs $1.36 favourites. Canterbury $2.95 outsiders. The line is -7.5, and your best backed winning team and margin for this one, Chiefs 13 plus. Not by much though, 245. 1 to 12 is paying 265. If you're a patriotic Cantab, $4.10 for them, 1 to 12 is pretty juicy buying. Try scorer odds, markets not up at time of recording, unfortunately. But I think a shit ton of people have Kyle Preston on their bet slips, and fair enough too, after being the hat-trick hero last week. Will Jordan, Sevu Reece, those two will also prove to be popular, and I reckon they're probably your best bets for the lads from the deep south. In terms of for the Chiefs, Damian McKenzie scored 2 last week, and I think he could feature on the score sheet again. Leroy Carter, he's another one that I will be having in there, and Anton Leonard-Brown, always like having a cheeky flutter on him. ALB, I think he's so underrated. Yes, he's considered one of the best players in New Zealand, but I reckon he's legit world class. He's just so consistent as a footballer, so maybe he sneaks onto my slips there. Reds versus Moana. This one should be an interesting watch. Reds $1.16 favourites. Moana $4.80. The line 14.5. Best back winning team and margin, won't surprise you, based off that line. That Reds 13 plus has been pounded into the earth at $1.62. Look, if you're being fair dinkum, then I think that's probably the bet, to be fair, and at $1.62, it's a pretty decent little multi-leg. I do think Moana might struggle in this one, just up against the quality Reds opposition. I can see a world, though, where they're rusty after a lot of preseason travel. The Crusaders did this exact trip last year, pretty much, and shit did they pay the price. They got the week off last week. No doubt they still trained, but first, proper Super Rugby intensity hit out for them for the year. There could be a chance of a little bit of rust, and the 1 to 12 could prove to be fruitful. In terms of your try scorers, I like the Reds hooker, Richie Asiata. He's a good shout. I also like Tim Ryan and Josh Fluke for Moana. Talmoi Falau will be on my bet slips for sure, and I will be getting around him. Next game, Super Saturday, first of the triple headers. You got the Canes taking on the Drua. Canes $1.09 favourites there. The Drua playing $6.50. The line 17.5, and your best backed winning team and margin, Canes 13 plus at $1.42, which I will be going on. Try scorers, Cammy Roygaard. Got to have Royds in, didn't dot last week, so he'll be itching for a meaty. The bloke is an addict, not often where he goes a week without scoring one, let alone two, so surely he salutes. Then you got Kini Naholo on the sting, up against his fellow countrymen, the Flying Fijians, so I reckon he is a good shout. Landers versus Blues. Landers, $4.20. One for the stoners in the deep south. No doubt the students on Castle Street. They'll be ripping plenty of bongs, so maybe they jump on that. Blues, $1.20. Clear favourites here. The line is 12.5. Your winning team and margin, best backed, is Blues 13 plus at $1.82. I'm not sure about the 13 plus or that line of 12.5. I do think the Landers are going to put up a good fight here, so an alternative line is probably the best bet for me. I do think the Blues are going to win the game, though. The Blues will not lose, so they're still a good shout. In terms of your head-to-head markets, $1.20, maybe that's enough to get it on your bet slip. Otherwise, tease them down with an alternative line. In terms of your try scorers, AJ Lamb jumps out at me. Rico Ioane was quiet last week, but I'm just not sure at him in the midfield at Super Rugby level. Caleb Clark, Mark Talia, those are both attacking weapons that are always big threats. I like the look of Hoskins and Ricky Riccatelli in the forward pack, though. This pack, chip on shoulder season, they're going to want to prove a point after last week, so I reckon they'll be up for it for the Landers. Caleb Tangito, revenge game for him. I reckon he could be in for a big shift, as could Vikena, the hooker, who also came down from the Blues after being starved of opportunities last year. Those two, a bit of a spite bet. Hey, that rolls off the tongue. Sistema lunchbox too. S's everywhere. Perhaps that's an omen and get around that one. And then Brumbies versus Force. Yeah, look, bit of a poo slinger. Probably won't be watching it myself. Brumbies 13 plus. That's your bet for this one, paying $1.60. Get yourself in the mixer there. My perfect round magic multi this week. This is no doubt where your ears pop up. After glory last week, I'm going the Chiefs and the Blues head to head. The Reds and the Brumbies 13 plus, and the Canes minus 4.5. $6.30. I was going to go a little bit more conservative, but I wanted to pay it over at least $5. Otherwise, it's pretty missionary. So, Chiefs and Blues head to head. Reds and Brumbies 13 plus. Canes minus 4.5. Probably quite safe there for the drawer. I could tease that out a little bit more, but that is paying $6.30. NRL, my predicted ladder, teased her before, and of course off the back of this, I'll be doing an NRL futures multi-builder for my finals footy around what I've come up with here too. I'll chuck her in the TAB algorithm and cook up some multis, some futures, see what she pays. Top 8, my predicted top 8, and I must caveat this by saying I had the Bunnies in at 8th. That was before the news dropped a couple of hours ago, prior to speaking to Guru and whatnot around this news of Cam Murray, potential snapped Achilles, and then you got Latrell Mitchell, potential hamstring. If that is the case, put a line through them. Bunnies, they won't make the 8 this year. Lots of people saying spoon now. I can't see a Wayne Bennett coach team winning the spoon, but I do think that they won't play finals as a result, especially if Trell's out for ages. That Cam Murray injury, that's tough. Had off-season wrist surgery. Love him playing for the Blues. Tallis Duncan, congrats to your horse. You've just played your way into, well, not even played your way, just made your way into my NRL fantasy team. That's for sure. But my top 8, I have the Storm, Panthers, Sharkies, Dogs, Manly, Broncos, Warriors, you absolute beauty. And then I had the Bunnies, so I'm going to have to adjust that a little. Just missing out, I had the Dragons, so maybe I moved them up into the 8. And just so you know, too, I went through every game. There's NRL ladder predictor page on the NRL website. You can go through every game, every result, pick the margin, and then at the end of the 27 rounds, they'll give you your predicted top 8. So I'll bump the Dragons up there into 8th. I had the Titans sniffing around. I actually did this a couple weeks ago. Man, did they look shit in their trial last week. Keen to see how big Tino Fa'asua-Malawi goes this week, of course. But yeah, just so you know that, Warriors in at 7th. That is big fizz for your bottom 9. I had Titans, Raiders, Roosters, Tigers, now the Bunnies, the Eels, the Dolphins, the Cowboys, and the Knights in no particular order. I think there's a couple teams there that are going to drop out from finals last year and really struggle. Roosters in particular, they've just lost so much. Terrell May, Carey, Joey Manu, Joseph Suali'i, Sammy Walker's out for the majority of the season. I can't see a Sandon Smith and Chad Townsend-led team take them to finals footy glory, but hey, could well be wrong, and it's bloody hard to predict. Like I said to Guru, there's probably only 1 or 2 losses stopping a team from coming 8th and a team from coming 14th. But off the back of this information, I built myself a futures multi. So here she is, a 6-team top 8 multi paying $22.97. I got the Storm and the Panthers top 4, Manly, Dogs, Warriors, Sharks top 8. $22.97. I love that. Then I had the Storm, Panthers, Sharks, Dogs, top 4, Manly, Broncos, Warriors, and now Dragons, top 8. $186 to 1 odds. And yes, it's bloody hard to pick the 8 on the nose, the top 4 on the nose too. But for 186 to 1 odds, shit, I've spent $5 on worse, and I'll be having a cheeky little bet responsibly on that for sure. But again, my best bet for your futures top 8 market on the TAB app, if you go into the NRL section on the TAB app and then click Futures Multi-Builder, you can chuck her in there. Have a go yourself. You'll be surprised at what some of the odds come at. But my best one again, 6-team, top 8 multi, Storm and Panthers top 4, Manly, Dogs, Warriors, Sharks, top 8, $22.97. Let's ride that home together. And then finally for your punting, Parker versus Dubois. Of course, this big biff. I'm really liking Parker here. Stats suggest there's some method to my madness too. Of course, Parker, 33 years old, had 4 world title fights to his name. Former WBO champion Dubois, just 27 years old. He's only had 2 title fights. Parker's boxed 250 rounds, Dubois 95. That, in my mind, gives the experience points to Joe's right there. Knockout, that is where it gets scary. Dubois, he's the bigger puncher. 95% of his wins have come via a stoppage. 21 of his 22 wins by KO, whereas Parker, his is only 66%. He prefers to go the distance and outbox these heavy hitters. He's got a good chin. Referenced that before. He's only been knocked out once by Joyce in the 11th round, so he doesn't go down easily. And I reckon that's another tick in the box for Joey P. On form, both men in good form. Parker's on a 5-fight win streak. Dubois on a 3-fight win streak, all by knockout. No surprises there. So I've chucked that into my TAB punting algorithm, and it's thrown me out these as my best bets. Joey Parker, $2.88. Get around it. Fight to go the distance at $2.38. Back Joe's jaw. That's a Joe jaw bet. That is juicy too. And then I like Parker by decision at $4.50. I'll be jumping on that as well. I reckon he gets it. It goes the distance. And our man, Sefo, he's the one getting his hand raised. 10 a.m. Sundee, live from Saudi Arabia. Don't miss it. Again, if you're having a flutter this weekend, AFC, the Black Cap, so much sport I didn't touch on right there. All your NRL trials, you can try some anytime try scorer bets on those too. You can get in early on some Vegas odds as well, up the Mighty Warriors. Download the TAB app or head along to their website if you're already a customer. Just log yourself in, gamble responsibly, and good luck on the old Carmichael punt this weekend. Q&A time. Again, just gone through and selected a coupley. Wary of time, how long this potty's gone on for, but more importantly, got my touch semi-finals tonight. The mighty B-side down at Windsor Park. I think we've won it, 7 or 8 years on the trot now, the Open Men's Div. Looking to secure another ticket through to the final. Unfortunately, be away for the final. Quite a few of the team members actually heading across to Vegas, so we will be down on troops, but they often say semi-final, hardest game to win. You got to earn your right to book the ticket to the big dance. Then what happens from there will be. So fingers crossed we can get the dub tonight. Need to go and limber up. But let's tuck into some of these questions. First one, fire up a Surly Super 15 Fantasy League. There is one. Haven't been promoting it too hard, to be honest, because I still think there's a bit of work to be done on this app over the next couple of years. I think it'll really come into its own. It's great to have it though, and cool to hear, fantasy points reference amongst the commentary. I reckon that helps big time to get bums on seats for this competition. I saw viewership was up too, which I think is a direct result of having a fantasy competition in the mix. So my league, the Surly League, what is the code? Here it is for you. It is JV26FS9Q. So JV26FS9Q. That was not easy to read out live for you there, but that is the Surly Super Rugby Fantasy code. I think there's about 120 odd people in the mix at the moment. Coming fourth, 704 points in round one. Happy with that one. Be great to have you in there. Izzy there, lad. Next one, Henry Lee, who's one Super Rugby player you don't want to see in a ruck. Mine is Tim Tavatavanawa. Yeah, that bloke, he's just made of concrete, isn't he? He's literally a brick. It'd be impossible to hit. One of those guys you fly in with good intentions, think you're going to move some bodies, you put the shoulder into him and you come out worse for wear. It hurts you more than it hurts them. So definitely Big Jim, he would be in there. The Jackal God, that's for sure. When I think of players I don't want to see in a ruck, straight away, mine jumps to Darwin Darcy Swain after that ACL tear he caused to Quinn Tupaia, still not over that one. I think Scotty Barrett would be a master of the dark arts, bottom of a ruck. He's probably getting into you with some tricks of the trade. Brodie Retallick, guys like that, of course, not in Super anymore though. So when I think of guys I don't really want to see around the ruck, there's something about Hugh Renton as well. Maybe it's the lid, the old shaved head that just gives him that enforcer look, but he looks like someone that wouldn't hesitate to put a shot onto your ribs if they were exposed. So those are kind of the names that jump out at me. Your Patrick Tuipolotus, those guys that hit bloody hard, but Tim Tavatavanawa definitely has to be up there. That bloke is a wrecking ball. Nick Nath says, best player to ever play for the Blues. Is it Rupeni with a question mark? Shit, Rupeni Thauthau Niambutha used to be one of my favourite players to watch. Watching Super 12 back in the day, those Heritage Blues kits with him in the mixer. Shit, that was a pleasing sight. You go back even further than that. Players like Joeli, used to love watching him. He used to own the Foursquare up in Kumu. That was my local. Actually get to play with his son now, which is pretty cool, but I used to be a massive Joeli Vinderi fan. Kev Mealamu, Jerome Kaino, Nick Williams, Michael Jones, of course, all those names stand out. Sam Tuitupo, used to love him too. Arini Aiei. Fun fact, my dad actually wanted to call me Arini instead of Ben. Mum said no, she put a stop to that. How different life could have been. I reckon with a name like Arini, a first name, that was probably what I needed to go to the next level in my code, and I could well have gone on and played professional rugby or rugby league, because Arini is a footballer's name not to be. But I think my king for the Blues and of Super Rugby in general, probably my favourite rugby player ever, King Carlos Spencer. He just ticked every box. That day he busted out that knee chip kick. Fuck, I did that on the lawn for about 10 hours, months on end, every day after he pulled that off. That was some elite stuff. His razzle was unmatched, his charisma, he had the Toffee Pops ad. He was just the complete package. I reckon he was the man, King Carlos. So he's probably right up there for me. Number one in terms of Blues players to ever lace them up. Next question comes through. It says, why don't loose forwards suit suits? Great question. I think when it comes to whining and dining and the glamour stuffs, putting on the tuxes, shining the shoes, you leave that stuff to the backs, don't you? Surely. The old hard men, loose forwards are often quite gangly, quite long, lean, built, broad shoulders, can get over a ball, can steal some nut, that's for sure, and they execute their role on the paddock perfectly. But when I think it comes to the dressing up, the good-looking stuff, you leave that to your backs and your outside backs. A lot of these loose forwards, they just seem a bit gangly, a bit out of proportion, so perhaps that's why. It's probably hard to get a suit too. If you're an Ethan Blackadder or someone like that, shit, you'd have to go to Barker's and get a custom job, surely. Thoughts on big Tommy Hazleton coming and having chats with the Wars? Yeah, I'm all for that, and there's actually a second question around that too. Is he potential for an immediate release or for next year? Yeah, look, it's a rumour. It's been started over in Oz that he came across here, toured our facilities on the weekend. Don't know if it's true or not. There's every chance it is, and if it is, then you'd have to think he's genuinely keen to come across. Like what Guru said in the league segment before, you don't just jump on a plane and come here for shits and giggles. You've got to have some interest, and I really like it. He's a solid player with potential to keep going up in levels. I think it allows us then to shift Barnett to an edge where he can play a bit more of his ball playing and really strengthen up our pack too. He's still young. Loves a try scorer. Be another great get for us from Cronulla to go alongside Lukey Met and Sam Healy. I'm all for it, and I reckon Warriors fans would really get around him too. He'd become a bit of a cult hero for our club. If it was immediate, I reckon that would be huge. If it's for next year, I'd still well and truly take him. So hopefully there's some truth to it, and the big fella could well be in the mixer in the Warriors colours in the years to come. Jared Gibson, if you had to only ever eat one item off the Macca's menu, what would it be? Nutrition aside. Huge caveat there at the end, the nutrition aside, because when you say forever, rest of your life, and you're factoring in nutrition, you'd probably have to go boring from the old Macca's bloody glamour cafe creations app or whatever they call it, that menu, and get around the old chicken wrap or something like that, because you just couldn't sustain pounding shit for every meal day in and day out. Nutrition aside though, if that didn't matter, Big Mac, safest bet. Do love a double cheeseburger with mayo. Often run the Big Mac combo into a double cheeseburger with mayo. Just the burger when I'm dusty. That's been my order as of late. chuck a 10-pack of chicken nuggets in there with sweet and sour sauce and you're really getting into your work. And I would have said chicken nuggets, but I had a mate growing up who just pounded them every day. And it semi gave him man boobs, and he put it down to the hormones in the chicken nuggets. Ever since that, I've taken it as folklore, a bit of a scientific fact. So I reckon you got to limit your nugget intake just to keep your nips in check. You don't want the man boobs flowing as a result of the old chicky nuggies. So yeah, one item every day, probably a Big Mac. Then following that, the old double cheeseburger. Has to have mayo though, or else it's just not worth even ordering. Final question, Tom Cho says, who do you reckon will be the Warriors' top try scorer in 2025? Had a look on the TAB because I reckon this will be a fun betting market. They don't have it up at time of recording anyway, but I think you'd have to say the safest bet would be Roger. Out on the sting, scored 2 on the weekend. I think he scored 5 tries in 5 games on the wing for the Warriors now. Love scoring meaties out there. One-on-one, he's so hard to stop. Dallin straight away would be a number 1 pick, but of course he's out for so long. Then when he comes back, he'll probably replace Tane on the wing. So that rules out that wing spot. Roger would probably be my safest bet. So he'd be the one that if there was a market on at the TAB, I'd probably be spending my hard-earned cash on him. But as always, really appreciate your questions. Not sure if there'll be a Q&A next week from Vegas. Might remember to chuck her up. Odds are, though, I'll be on the steam, so I'll probably forget. But hey, great to bloody hear from you anyway. That's us for another pod next week, coming to you live from Las Vegas. Can't wait. Not too sure on the logistics, the timing of it all, of course. Taking my equipment across with me, so the schedule in which the pod drops could be a little different. We're doing a one take live from over there too, with some great guests lined up. So stay tuned for that, because that'll be a good yarn, talking all things Warriors in Vegas as well. But absolutely fizzing. Can't wait to rip in. Could be one of the great hungover podcasts as well, depending on how the night plays out that night before. Shout out as always to the TAB. Really appreciate their support. You best believe I'll be downloading a VPN so I can still Carmichael punt up a storm in foreign territory. Joseph Parker, get on board with him this weekend. Get up Big Sefor. Get up the AFC as well. Hopefully they can pull it off. And enjoy your weekend of Super Rugby. Catch you back out sometime, someplace next week. How bloody good.